Hello everyone, let's take a look at LeetCode 157 today. Read and characters given read4. Okay, let's take a look at problem first. Given a file and assume that we can only read the file using a given method read4. We need to implement a method to read n characters. Okay, so method read4's definition is it can read 4 consecutive characters from file, then writes those characters into the buffer array, buffer4. The return value is the number of actual characters read. For example, if there are only 2 characters in the file, if we call buffer4, the return value is 2, since there are 2 characters remaining. And read4 has its own file pointer. For example, this is our file. It has 5 characters, 1 A, B, C, D, E. The first call of read4 will return 4, and our buffer4 will become A, B, C, D. The second call of read4 only returns 1, since there are only 1 character remaining, so buffer4 will become E. And the third call, or fourth call, or 10th call will return 0, since we already consumed all the contents in this file. Okay, so we need to implement a method called read using read4. By using the read4 method, we need to implement the method read n characters from file and store it in the buffer array buffer. And we cannot manipulate file directly. The only API we can use is read4. And the return value is the number of actual characters read. For example, in the first example, file is ABC and is 4. We try to read 4 characters, but there are only 3 characters in this file, so the return value is 3. In the second example, there are 5 characters in file, and we want to read 5 characters, so it will return 5. And for example, in the first example, there are 8 characters in file, and I just try to read 5 characters, so the output is 5. As a user, we know in order to call this read function, the function call is like this. First, we knew a buffer. Then we call this read function. For example, we try to read 1,000 characters from file into my buffer. Then there may be some text process or other stuff. After the process, I will delete this buffer. So that's from the perspective of a normal user, that's how we call this read function. Okay, so let's implement this read function using read4. Let's try to start with a simple version, assuming this is our file, which has 8 characters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. And this is our buffer. I try to read 6 characters into our buffer, so we knew buffer with size 6. First, I call read4. We read A, B, C, D into our buffer. Then I call read4 buffer plus 4. I read E, F, G, H into my buffer. And since read4 it does not have the boundary track, it may just copy E, F, G, H to this memory address, which may disrupt or destroy or overwrite some areas that not belong to buffer. So it may cause some problems. So we need to have a cache. So we try to use read4, to read the contents into my cache first, then copy the characters in my cache to buffer. So this is a basic framework. First, we have index, and index is 0, which points to the index in the buffer. Finally, we just return this index, meaning how many characters I have read. And as long as index is smaller than n, we will continue this while loop. And we have this cache, which is of size 4. First, I will try to call read4 and read some contents into my cache. So first, we read A, B, C, D, and cache count is 4. If cache count is 0, we can just break, which means we already consumed all the contents in this file. Then we have a cache index, which is 0 first point to A. As long as there's still some contents in my cache, and I still need to read, index is smaller than n, we will try to copy contents from cache to buffer. So first we copy it to buffer. We copy A to buffer. Then cache index plus plus, which point to B. Index is plus plus. Cache count minus minus, which becomes 3. So we just repeat this process. We copy B, we move the pointer, update cache count. We copy C, we move the pointer, we update the cache count. Okay, then we know at this point, cache count is 0. Since cache count is 0, which is so this while loop, we will break this while loop. Next time, I call read4, so I read EF into my cache. But this time, cache count is only 2, since there are only 2 characters I can read. Then cache index is 0, which point to E, so I copy E to my buffer. At this time, index is 5. So index is 5, which is not smaller, like it's not smaller than n. N is also 5. So we break this while loop. Finally, I just return this index, which is 5. Okay, so this is my implementation. Here we use the cache. We use read4 function to read contents from file to our cache first, then copy the contents from cache to buffer. Okay, that's it. See you next time.